This is Native Voice Radio. I'm Lemanuel Loli.
And I'm Shireen Gonzalez. The Native American Journalists Association's annual conference kicked off Thursday in Tempe. This weekend, President Rhonda Lovato is finishing up her term. Lovato's been a board member for 6 years, nearly 3 of those she served as president. During her time, Lovato worked to ensure the financial stability of NAJA and helped create a long-term strategic plan. She also fought negative stereotypes in media while advocating for newsroom diversity and the inclusion of Native journalists in mainstream media. Lovato says even though this is her last week as president, she hopes to continue to be an advocate for NAJA.
NAJA members dealing with freedom of press issues, pre-publication review, or ethics problems may be eligible to take advantage of a new legal hotline. The service provided by NAJA is intended to help members with legal questions. More info is online at naja.com. Native people are still talking about the film The Lone Ranger and its take on American Indian history. It's being touted as a classic Western with a fictional iconic Native American character. Radio Project Phoenix reporter Cheyenne Wallen reports.
It's been about 2 weeks since the world premiere of The Lone Ranger. There was much buzz online and across social media way before the film's release date. It happened almost immediately when the first image of the fictional character Tonto was released, played by actor Johnny Depp. Depp is caked in face paint, wearing feathers, beads, and a giant black bird on top of his head. Now that Native audiences have seen the flick, opinions vary with both supporters and critics. One of them is Farina King. She's a Navajo historian grad student at Arizona State University in Tempe. King went in to watch the movie with an open mind, and after, her views heavily changed. She says it's typical for most people to think Indians are going to be bothered by it and create a big uproar. King is most disappointed about what she says is a missed opportunity.
They didn't really show anything of really how they were and why they were fighting. It was just, again, a perpetuation of romanticizing Native Americans as, oh, they recognize their fate as a vanishing people and they're going to die. And so any little quick glimpses that they tried to recreate of the Comanche were just almost ridiculous in the sense that they were short and just a continuation of stereotyping the vanishing Indian image.
Depp, producers, and cultural advisors say Tonto and the storyline were about the Comanche people. The Comanche Nation in Oklahoma has publicly supported the Lone Ranger. LaDonna Harris, who's Comanche, adopted Depp during filming, and a special screening was held in Oklahoma before the world premiere was held, and included Comanche people. Others directly involved with the movie are voicing their support. Actor Andrew Orozco played a Native American warrior in the film. Orozco's take on the controversy surrounding the film is that people just don't understand, especially some Native Americans. He says for one thing, it's just a movie and entertainment.
It's not about critiquing everything on it. There is a lot of accuracy in the film. They had specialists there that made sure everything was authentic, so it's accurate to, what he was portraying. Like I said, there's a controversy. People say Johnny Depp's not Native enough. He's not Native at all. I believe that if you are any type of Native American, even if you are Cherokee, white people, or if they're 50%, 60%, it doesn't make them any less Native American.
For some Native people in the Phoenix metro area who have not seen The Lone Ranger, like Gloria White, they're still not sure if they'll go. Radio Project Phoenix asked her opinion about the film as she was coming out of the Phoenix Indian Center. She doesn't know she'll watch the movie because there have been other films portraying Native Americans she wasn't pleased with.
I don't know. I never really watched Lone Rangers, Lone Ranger from before. So I don't even know what to think of it. Sometimes I just feel offended if they said something that wasn't right, like that other movie, Wind Talker or something like that. That was kind of weird.
White says Wind Talkers, a movie that involves Navajo code talkers, has made a lasting bad impression on her because she says the movie didn't give much credit to the Navajo language. As far as The Lone Ranger is concerned, Native Americans can decide for themselves whether or not the movie is worth their time. The box office opening weekend for the movie made about 25% of what it cost to make the film, and has received many poor reviews by film critics. For Radio Project Phoenix, I'm Cheyenne Wallen.
The Hopi tribe of Arizona is celebrating the return of a sacred item. It was almost lost in a Paris auction in April. As Christine Trudeau reports, while dozens of items were sold overseas, the return of even one sacred object is a small victory.
70 sacred Hopi items were being sold on average for around $3,000 by a Paris auction house in April. How the auction house obtained the items is still unclear. The Hopi pursued legal action in France to stop the auction and appealed to U.S. officials for help. Their attempts were unsuccessful, and on April 12th, bidding for the items opened. However, the Hopi's French lawyer bought one, which he returned to the tribe last week. Hopi Chairman Leroy Sengletiwa says he hopes the incident will help other tribes connect internationally to get sacred items returned.
Not knowing what our other tribes have gone through with what they're trying to accomplish, it's hard for me to answer for them, but for the Hopi people, it truly was a huge step for us to have someone who did come and was willing to bring something back to our people that has a great significance into our way of life.
The type of international agreements that currently exist and whether those need to be changed slightly to better accommodate or better deal with this type of a situation.
Timothy McOwen is a cultural anthropologist and a former employee of the Department of the Interior. He sees a need for policy change to make trafficking cultural property illegal. McOwen says countries like Australia and Canada already have a system in place for export restrictions as part of their law.
The only entity that a foreign government deals with is the federal government.
The Hopi's efforts made international headlines, and McOwen has been following media coverage. In doing so, he says there are other buyers from the Paris auction who have made statements publicly that they intend to return sacred items that were at the auction. For Native Voice Radio, I'm Christine Trudeau.
The National Association of Tribal Historic Preservation Officers is organizing training sessions specifically on the issue of culturally unidentifiable remains, a classification that prevents many federally unrecognized tribes from reclaiming sacred items.
Welcome back to Native Voice Radio. I'm Lemanuel Lowley.
And I'm Shireen Gonzalez. The Phoenix Indian Center is a place Native people in the metro area can study the Navajo language. Native Voice Radio reporter Cheyenne Wallen reports.
A class of about a dozen people read a story about a rabbit. They gathered Monday at a summer session on the Navajo language. Other activities included the use of flashcards. They featured images like animals and weather and were translated and recited in Navajo. Jolana Begay taught the group that night.
They're gaining knowledge of who they are and how they identify with themselves as Navajo people. And then we're learning simple sounds, basic conversations, just those starter, the basic beginning foundations of the language itself so that they can continue to be readers, writers, and speakers of the language.
The adult group had speakers from beginners to fluent. Participant Gloria White already knows the language but wants to learn more.
I enjoy learning how to read the language. I know how to speak Navajo, but I'm learning how to read, and I want to learn how to write it too fluently, and how to connect with my elderlies also and my children.
Begay says there are many urban Navajo families in the area who don't get a chance to learn the Navajo language and culture, and adds this class helps connect them. For Native Voice Radio, I'm Cheyenne Wallen.
The 2013 Native American Journalists Association student project is wrapping up this week. A group of 19 high school and college students are working with professional Native journalists. Their work started Sunday. The students published a newspaper, produced a television newscast, and the radio stories you're hearing on today's program. Now, joining us in studio to talk about the project is mentor Mark Dreadfulwater, college student Dylan Guther, and high school student Autumn Manuel. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Manny. We're happy to be here.
Mark, tell us why it's important for NAJA to have this program.
The program is important because we're trying to teach and inspire young high school and college students to become future professional journalism.
Okay, thank you for your insight. Autumn, you're the youngest student this year, entering high school. Tell us about your most memorable experience this week.
I would have to say my most memorable experience would be getting to interview a teacher and a student at the Phoenix Indian Center because it was a really fun experience for me.
Thank you. And Dylan, how will your experience help you in the future?
In the future, I will be able to write better captions, take better photos, and use my excellent note-taking skills to write better stories. Along with, I will be more comfortable during an interview sitting.
Thank you, Dylan. That sounds like valuable experience.
Thank you all for joining us today. Check out the students' work online at nativevoice.naja.com. And for members in search of familiar food in the Phoenix area, Native Voice Radio has 2 recommendations. The Sacred Hogan and the Fry Bread House are Native-owned. For Native Voice Radio, I'm Shireen Gonzalez.
And I'm Lemanuel Loli. Special thanks to our engineers today, ASU students Megan Lopez and Ashley Reyes.